In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to set up and use an object storage in Python and Django. Object stores are used to store large amounts of unstructured data in a cost-effective way. So it's great for storing things like images, videos, and archives that are added by either you or uploaded by your users. I'm going to use Savala's object storage in this video for the demonstrations, but any S3 compatible object storage will work. So let's get into learning how to work with object storages in Python. To begin, I'll create an object storage here on the Savala dashboard. So I'll just click on create object storage here, and then I have a name for it and a location. So for the name, what I'll say is Python object store test. And then for the location, Western North America is fine, but of course you can change the location to whatever works for you. So I'll create it here and wait for it to finish. And now that it's ready, it appears here in the list of object stores. I'll click on it. And we see I get this page here. So this page will list all the objects that I have. So I have none yet, obviously, because I haven't added anything. So let me go ahead and upload a few files. So I'll click the upload button and then select files. And then I'll just grab all of these files here and upload them. So shouldn't take too long. Okay, should be ready now. And now I have the 3 files. So I can click on one. I can see a preview of the image. I can click on the dots over here. I can download the image or I can delete it. And of course, I can have more than images. I can have any type of file. I just happen to have images right now. And as you can see, this object dashboard doesn't have much more to it. For settings, this will be the important part. So these details here, I'll need in a second when I want to be able to connect to my bucket. The CORS policy, you'll set this up if you are going to be calling your files from something like JavaScript. So if you're going to send fetch requests, then you can use a CORS policy. I won't in this video, so I'll skip this section, but it's here if you need it. For public access, by default, the public access is turned off. I'll enable it later in the video so you can see what the difference is, but for now, I'll leave it off. And of course, you can delete the object store if you want to delete it. And you have this user management area where you can add in users who can also manage your objects. But for this video, it's just going to be me. So I'll go back to objects here. And this is pretty useful. I can upload files and store them and I can download them. But really the reason why you use an object store is because you want to programmatically store and retrieve files. So let's get into that. Let me go over to my terminal. And the library that I want to use in Python to do this is called Boto3. So first, let me initialize UV, and then I can do UV add Boto3, and this will install Boto3 for me. So Boto3 is a library that will allow me to connect to any S3 compatible bucket. So that's what I have on Savala, so I'll be able to connect to it. So I'll write all the code in main.py here, but of course, this code can go anywhere where it is appropriate for you. So the first thing I need to do in here is I need to import Boto3 to use it. So I can just do import Boto3. Then I can also import config. So this is going to be from botocore.client import the config class. And I'll show you what that config is used for in a second. So what I want to do here is inside of main, I want to create a client. So this client will be used to run all the commands that work for the bucket. So you'll see that in a second. So to create this client, I'll do boto3.client. And the first argument to the client is the type that I want to use. So I want to use an S3 client, meaning I want to connect to something that's S3 compatible. Boto3 can do a bunch of other things, but for the purposes of this video, we just want to do the S3 stuff. So it's S3 compatible. So S3 is the first argument. And then we're going to have our credentials. So for the credentials, we have AWS access key ID, and that's going to be equal to some string. Then we have the AWS secret access key. That's going to be equal to another string. We have the endpoint URL and then config. So I'll set up config now. So it takes in the config class. And then inside of config, I want to say what the signature version will be. So signature version equals, and the signature version that we need for this is S3v4. So there's S3v2, but that's out of date. So we want S3v4, and we're just passing that explicitly. So I'm going to pass in the credentials here. So let me go back to the Savala dashboard to grab them. So I can go to settings here, and then for the access key, I can copy it and paste it in here. For the secret key, I can copy that and paste it in here. And then for the URL, I'll just find that, the endpoints, copy that and paste it in here. So of course, in a real project, you'd probably have these values in either a configuration file that will work with Boto3 automatically, or you can have it in something like an environment variable or a secret manager, whatever works for your project. Just for the purposes of this video, I'm just putting everything here. So now that I have this connection to my bucket, what I can do is I can run the first command. So let's try that out. So I'll say response is going to be equal to clients.list objects v2. So there's a original list objects, but we want version 2. And then the bucket is going to be equal to the name of my bucket. So let me go over here and grab my bucket name from the Savala dashboard, and I'll paste it in here for bucket. And then I can print out the response and we can see what happens. So down here, I'll run uv run and then main.py. And it comes back and we should have a list of all of the objects in our object storage. So if I look here, I'm looking for the names of the files. Okay, so one is the Django logo negative.png. That's one. Another is savala.png. And then the last one, I believe, is cat.jpg. And I'm having trouble seeing that, although I know it's here. Where is the cat? Here we go, right here. So cat.jpg. Right, so if we want to list all the things that we have, we can run this command and we can loop over the results and do anything with them that we need to do. Another thing that we can do is we can download a file. So to do that with the client, I'll do client.download file. And then the first thing I want to pass in is the name of the bucket. So I'll copy this here, paste it in there. So the name of the bucket. The second will be the name of the file. I'll do savala.png. And then the third argument will be the name of the file on my local system when I download it. So I'll call this downloaded.png. So I'll save that and I will run this now. And if you look over here, we see that there's this downloaded.png. So this is the same file that is in the object storage. I just downloaded it. And if I want to upload, I can do something similar. So upload file. And I'm just going to upload the same file that I downloaded. So downloaded.png. Then I need to pass in the bucket name. So the bucket name is this. And then the third argument will be the name of the file when it's on the object store. So I'll call this uploaded.png. So I'll save that and I'll run it. And it's done now. So let me jump back over to Savala and refresh here. And we see we have this uploaded now. And if I preview the image, we see the image that I have. So we can download, we can upload, and we can list. Those are the main operations that you can use. And there's some other things in Boto3 that you can do. So just check out the documentation. But it's as simple as what I just did here for these 3 different commands. So now that we have Boto3 working, you see how easy it is to interact with the object store. So if you're using Django and you want to interact with the object store automatically, there is a library that you can use that will take care of this for you. And that's what I'll demonstrate here. So I'll close this and I'll start up a Django project. So first, let me add Django. So uv add Django. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to do uv run Django admin start project. And we'll just call this example. And I'll put it here in the current directory. This Django admin needs to have a dash between Django admin. So now that worked properly. I'm going to create an app. So manage.py and then start app. And I'll create an app called app because I'll need it to create a model. And before I forget, let me just add this app to the installed apps. So app just like that. And what I want to do next is I want to migrate. So migrate all the defaults. And then I want to create a super user so I can get into the admin dashboard because it's going to be pretty easy to demonstrate how Django can work with the object store through the admin dashboard. I won't have to create anything custom. So create super user. And then I'll fill in the information here. And then once I do this, I'll start up the server. So manage.py run server. And now let me run the server. Okay, so we see this screen, so Django is working properly. Let me go to the admin dashboard and log in. And as we can see, everything is working here. So no problems with Django. So we have that set up. So now I want to bring in the static file handling and the default file handling, which I'll show you. So the first thing I need to do is I need to install a library called Django-Storages. So UV add Django-Storages, that's plural. Once it's installed, I don't have to use installed apps or anything. Instead, what I need to do is I need to go to settings.py, and then I'll just go all the way down to the bottom here, and I'll create a settings key called storages. So this will be a dictionary, and each key of the dictionary will represent a single storage in your Django app. So there are two main storages that you're probably going to be interested in. There's the default storage, which is the default location where all your files get stored, like if users upload something. And then there's also the static file store. So this handles your static files. So I'll demonstrate both in this video. So I'll start by setting up the default, and I'll basically just copy and paste for the static files, and then I'll modify them where necessary. So for the default, the first key I need inside of here is called backend. And this is where I tell Django that I want to use Django-Storages. So I'm going to do storages here, backends.s3.s3 storage. Storage like that. And like I said before, the reason why I'm using S3 is because Savala's object storage is S3 compatible. So I can just use the S3 storage here in Django-Storages. After that, I have options. And for the options, this is basically the credentials for the most part. So we have the access key. We have the secret key. We have the bucket name. So bucket name. We have the endpoint URL. And then finally, for now, we have the signature version. So signature version, and I can just fill that in. So that's going to be S3v4. And then for the others, I'll just copy and paste them again. So let me go over to my settings. I'll grab the access key. Access key goes here. Secret key goes here. Bucket name. And the endpoint. Okay, and remember what I said, typically you wouldn't have your credentials out like this. You'd use environment variables, you'd use a secret manager, something along those lines. For this video, I'm just putting them here because it's the most convenient. Okay, so this is the complete setup that I need for now for the default. But it turns out that static files are a little easier to demonstrate when it comes to this storage. So what I'll do is I'll copy this one and I'll paste it again. And instead of default, this will be static files. All right, so now that I have static files on, let me start up the app and you'll immediately see a difference. So let's go back to the admin dashboard and just refresh the page. So now when I refresh the page, you see the styles are messed up. If I go to the network tab and look at the requests here, we see I get a bunch of errors. And if we look closely, it's trying to get the files from my object store. And it should be pretty obvious why this doesn't work is because I don't have any of those files in my object store. So I've set it up saying that the files are going to be there, but they're not actually there. So how do I get them to appear? So because I have the static files set up and I have my bucket here, what I can simply do is I can do uv run manage.py collect static, run it. And then it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the existing files. The answer is yes. And what this is going to do is it's going to take all the static files in my project, put them all into one directory, and then it's going to move them over to the Savala bucket. So I'll wait for that. It's going to take a while because it has to upload each image and JavaScript file and CSS file individually, and it's doing that over the network. So as we wait for that, what I'll do here is I'll talk about this static URL. So typically, what you would do with a static URL is you would put the location that your static files would be. So like this, I would do the base URL and then a slash at the end, and then Django would know how to create my static URL path for a given static file. But because I'm using static files like this static file isn't necessarily used for anything, but Django still requires you to use it when you're using the static files app. So I would just keep it here and just keep it consistent. So whatever URL you expect your static files to come from, make sure it's here, and then make sure it ends in a slash because you need a slash at the end of static URL. So as that continues, I guess I can talk about one other thing while it's uploading. So if you wanted your static files to appear in a separate directory when they get uploaded, I can create that directory here. So I can say like location, and then I can say static as an example. So that means that Django-Storages will upload all of my static files into a directory called static. So as we'll see when everything is done uploading, it's going to be in the main directory. And there's some other directories that come with the static files, but it's going to start in the main directory. But if I wanted the location to start in static, I can do that. And if I had static here, then I would just add static here to keep it consistent. But I'm not going to use that here, but just keep that in mind if that's how you want your object stores to be laid out. I think it's a good idea to have multiple object stores because they're so easy to create. So perhaps you have one bucket for your static files and a separate bucket for your user uploaded files, for example. There's no need to combine the two because it's so easy to create these buckets. So I'll sit here and wait until the uploads are finished. And when they are, I'll take you to the dashboard. Okay, so we see here it says 127 static files copied. So let me go back over to the dashboard and I'll just refresh here. And now we see this admin directory. So all of my admin static files are going to be in here. If I had more static files, there'd probably be other directories. And like I said, you can change your location to be static. So you can have like the static directory, and then inside of that would be admin. But because I don't have that many files, I think this is fine. So if I click into admin, we'll see some other folders, JS, and then some JavaScript files. So if I go back here and refresh, everything should be working again because it will be able to pull the files from the object store. And of course, it's not working here because I forgot to turn the server back on. So let me turn it back on and then just refresh. And now we see everything looks good again. So working with static files is really easy to do. And before I move on, I want to show you something with the file names. So let me refresh here. And then let's look at this. So I'll copy this and I'll paste it into here just so it's easier to see. So this is the URL for one of our files, right? So we have our base URL. This is the location of the object store here. And then the name of the bucket and then the path for the file. So admin.js, theme.js. But after this, we get all this extra information. It has like a signature, it has expires, it has a date, and so on. So the purpose behind this is for viewing private files. So like I said before, public access is turned off. So the only way that someone can view one of the files that we have in the object store is to have one of these special URLs, and it's called a pre-signed URL. So what I'll do is I'll demonstrate it in Boto 3 since I have that here. So let me comment this out. And down here, what I'll do is I'll create a pre-signed URL. So pre-signed URL and then clients, and then generate pre-signed URL. And the method that I want to use this on is get. So we use get object, and then I need to pass in some params. So it's a dictionary, and then I need the bucket name. So bucket, I'll put the name in a second. And then I need the key. So capital K key. And then I'll just do savala.png again. And then expires in. So we'll do expires in, let's say 20 seconds. So pretty short. So you'll see how this works. And let me grab my bucket name. So my bucket name is here. And it goes here. Okay, so let me run this main file again. So main.py. Oh, I need to print this out. So print pre-signed URL. Okay. So I'll run this and I get this URL. So let me go ahead and grab this quickly and go over and paste it. And we see the Savala file here. So even though my bucket isn't public, I can still see the file because I have this special URL that was generated. But remember, I put the expires into 20 seconds. So after 20 seconds, I will no longer be able to view this image. So it should have been about 20 seconds now. And yeah, now we see expired requests. Request has expired. So this is something you can set up in Django-Storages as well. But for this purpose, you can see that it's secure in the sense that if you want to share the file with someone, you can share it with them, and the file is only going to be available for a certain amount of time before you have to generate a new URL. So just keep that in mind when you're using private files. For the most part, you don't have to worry about it because Django-Storages will take care of it automatically, as we saw in the network tab here when I was looking at it. So now that we've seen static files, the other thing I want to do is I want to show you how to work with the defaults. So let me go over to app and I'll create a model, and I'll call this model my file. So models.model, and I'll just have a name for the file. So models, and it's character field, max length, let's just say 100. And then the file field, so models.file field. And then the upload to, so this is upload to. And then I need a directory for this. So for the directory, I'm going to do my files, just like that. And now in admin.py, I want to import this. So from .models, import my file, and then admin.site.register my file so I can view it on the admin dashboard. So let me go ahead and make migrations. So make migrations, and then I'll migrate, and then I can start up the server. So manage.py run server. And we should see here when I refresh, my file shows up, and I will upload something. So add my file, and I'll call this my first file, and I'll select one from my file system. So let's do the Django logo, and I'll just save this. Right, so it's saved. So now let me go back to Savala and let me go to the top level of the bucket. And we see I have this directory called my files. So as you saw when I was defining the model, my files is the upload to part. So let me go back there, upload to. So it's going to put everything inside of my files. Then when I open it, I see the Django logo negative picture. So as we can see, Django-Storages handled it for me. It automatically uploaded it for me. And then here in the admin dashboard, there's a link I can click on, and it has the similar style for the URL. It has the bucket, and it has all this stuff here for the signature of the URL, so I can actually view it. So now with that done, let me switch over to public files. So once again, this is not something that you necessarily need to do. If you are going to have a public bucket, I recommend just having a single bucket that has public stuff in it, and then all your private stuff can go in separate buckets. So what I'll do here is I'll enable public access, and then this just takes a moment. And then once public access is enabled, I'll have this domain here. So I'll go ahead and copy that, and I'll go back to settings. And all I have to do is find default, and I'm going to add another option. This is called custom domain. And I'm going to pass in the domain that I just got. So I'll save that, and I'll go back to the admin dashboard, refresh, and I'll go into the file object. So file object here. And if I click on the link here, if you look at the URL, it's different. So it uses the domain that I have, and then the file name here. And as you can see, there's no signature information. And the reason why is because it's public. So anybody can see the file. It's going to be active forever as long as the bucket is public. So there's no need to create the signature for this. So if you want to use public access, you can. Just know that you need to set up the custom domain here. But like I said, I'd recommend having it private unless you really want to share the files, because that way no one will accidentally get hold of your files when they're supposed to be private. So as you can see, working with the object store on Savala is really easy in Python. You can either use Boto 3 directly like I did at first, or you can use Django-Storages if you're using Django, and everything will seamlessly work and you'll have no trouble using the object store for your project. If you'd like to try out using an object storage yourself in Python, you should definitely use Savala. You can get started now for free with a $50 credit. Also, make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel if you'd like more videos like this.